morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folani, and well, yesterday we started this whole conversation. I don't know if it's making a mountain out of an anthill, and I can hear howls of protest. What are you talking about? It is that strong to some people. But remember we were saying yesterday that the American new policy, it was centered on immigrant visas, because it is said that other visas, they're okay. This is not part of this policy. So we'll look at it and see how important it is, because a lawyer, an international lawyer that we'll be having on today, has said that, well, don't look at don't look at that aspect of it, as insignificant as all of that. I'm talking about Mr. Femi Aino. He's an international lawyer. Usually we have him on when we have these diplomatic matters or immigration issues. Yes. Thank you very much, as always, Femi, for coming on.
Thank you for the time.
Our other guest is Ambassador Ayo Olukoni. Ambassador Ayo Olukani is the DG of NASEMA. He's Nigeria's former ambassador to Australia. His concurrent registration to Belgium. He was telling me he started out his career in Brussels, if I got that part of it right.
Yes, you got it right.
Yes, but former ambassador to Australia and currently DG of NASEMA, which is the, got to make sure I get this right, the National Association of Chambers of Commerce, Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASEMA.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Ambassador,
for
coming on the program.
Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah. Let me take it from your perspective first. Giving me an overview, because these things are not cheaply done. I mean, you don't just wake up one day and say what has been said about Nigeria and 5 other countries. What was your first reaction when you heard that we're under something of a partial, is it? I want to be careful about the word. It's not exactly a ban. It's like we had a temporary closure of our borders. We had a partial closure of our borders. Now America is saying, well, as far as the immigration category of visas is concerned, there's a partial, slowing down. Give me your thoughts.
Well, thank you very much. I feel highly honored to be back in the studio.
Our pleasure. We go back a bit.
This is the key issues. It's nice. Let's focus on it. I want to start from the website of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security.
Sure.
That's where to start.
Okay.
Because that is where you interface with the public. It says 2020 travel visa restriction, and it's dated January 31st to 2020 travel restriction. It speaks about the question of the reasons why it was done. It goes on to a short history as far as that issue itself is concerned. It said what we're looking for. Does the country have issue more than electronic passport? And it goes on and on, to speak about how the process works.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there are 6 countries which are listed.
Yes.
Kyrgyzstan, Nigeria, Sudan, Tanzania. Then the reason is straightforward. It goes on and on and on and on. But it's also very instructive to look at the section which speaks about that. And let me read it briefly, because, generally emotions, like I say, I'm very fond of the famous saying of Mario Como, you govern in prose, you govern in poetry, but you campaign in poetry, but you govern in prose.
Okay.
That means the nitty-gritty. So it's good for people to read it. It says that further to last year, it was talking about the question of, it made reference to Chad. And it says that Chad was removed because it became exemplar. Improved lost and stolen passports were reported. And then it deepened its exchange of terrorism information. This country was removed from the list. Then it goes on to say that further alone in last year, we've seen notable improvement made by countries informed about their specific deficiency. Okay. Countries are informed about their deficiency. Then it says 2 examples. 2 countries are sharing information with the United States that they were not previously sharing. 2 countries have begun on improved reporting to Interpol, and 3 countries have provided example of their passports to the U.S. On and on and on and on and on. And of course, there are sections about it which speaks about the question of it's not a total ban.
It isn't.
Visas are still issued. And for us in the Chambers movement, we're very impressed in terms of the fact that when there are business to do, you go on, of course, you look at the papers, and they will be issued. But generally, we must accept the fact that the crises and problems which face us in Nigeria is one of the reasons which, and as a practitioner, as a diplomat, I spent 35 years in Nigerian Foreign Services. Part of it, I have to issue visas to as well. Usually, you do from time to time come out with regulations, and I'll give you a good example. When we had crises of romance fraud in which, a 27-year-old man or 67-year-old woman outside, especially Europe and other places, falling in love with a 25-year-old person. At the mission, we said, hey, listen, because before, all you need to do is fill your form, send the passport to the mission, and we issue. But we now say, look, we need restriction. Let them come for interview. So I think the reaction of the U.S. is according to what we have in here,
according
in
to
terms
what
of
you
those
just
crisis
told
problems.
us in there, Ambassador, it does seem a bit like other countries have listened to some comments, remarks, observations that they had made and had moved to make amends.
Yes.
Whereupon they had said, okay, there's no confusion anymore. The matter is clear.
Clear, yes, sir.
It'd be like say we know here what, to put it very, very locally.
Well, I was discussing these also on radio this morning, and which said that because they did not wake up to do this. It's a process, and that's what happens, in the world of diplomacy, travel, visas, and issues like that. Maybe there was something deficient
that for some
which
reason we did not address.
We did not address.
But now the president has instructed that a committee be set up, to be headed by the Minister of Interior, to address these matters.
Yes.
But let me find out why Barrister Femi Aino is shaking his head.
Yes, thank you for letting me in. Now, first of all, let me just make a background statement. Under international law, nations have a duty to control the entry of aliens into their territory. Every country has the right to do that.
Such as Nigeria is doing currently.
Nigeria is doing it.
We're doing it currently.
UK,
with our partial
every
closure.
other country,
Admission is the right of the
this and
receiving
that.
state.
Yes.
That's,
Right.
Okay.
And it's not limited to that. Under international laws, nations are also under a duty to promote family life, to make sure husbands are not separated from their wives or children. So how did they do that? They issue visa. If you are living in UK, in America, Mr. Yori, they issue visa to your wife and children to come and join you. The essence of doing that is to foster family relationship and also promote family life.
But between America and Mexico, we know the stories that are going on.
Even issue visa
it doesn't
to
always
your
work, is
sister,
the point
this
I'm
and
making.
that. The point you are making about, if you go to Arizona today, you will see a lot of children being pushed across the border from Mexico because we understand that people are eager to migrate to United States of America, either for economic reasons and family reasons. That is a peculiar situation. But the problem with this bar, what people are saying, Nigeria seems to be playing it down by saying visa has still been issued with respect to the distinguished ambassador.
It is they themselves that clarified.
The fact that they clarify it and others are supporting doesn't mean everything is fine and dandy. And the people who are banned, they are people who are applying for immigrant visa. And under the immigration law in the United States, I will tell you this. Immigrant visas are petitions made by an applicant that can lead to permanent residency. And the class of people, they are listed in the Act. Number one, fiancé of a United States citizen going to marry and stay in the United States. Those ones are classified under K1. So what I'm saying is that if you are one of these happy lovers who just fall in love with an American citizen, the essence of this ban is that you can't go to America to make love for now. You stay in your country. Now, moving on, K3, spouse of United States citizen awaiting approval of relative petition.
Sure.
Assuming you marry an American citizen and you want some of your relatives to join. And the problem with this is this. It's not even limited to that. There are lots of children that you classify them as Skype baby or handset baby.
Yes.
The father is in the US, the wife is in Nigeria with the children. They've petitioned the American embassy so that they can join their husband. Those applications do take months, if not years. And anytime the father called Nigeria, mommy will give the telephone to dad and say, oh, speak to dad.
Sure.
Next time the phone rings, the children will think daddy is in the handset by saying that's daddy. Because that's the only
I
means.
understand you.
And that,
Mr.
so
Enoch,
what I'm saying,
Yes.
sorry to stop your flow of thought, is this, that people should not look at this that, well,
It's a very simple
you
thing.
can still get a tourist visa, this and that. This is a decision that affects family.
Indeed, and I take the point
Yes.
you are making that it
And-
can actually
and the class
affect
goes
family.
on because
it does, because
I know because you need to manage
yes,
time.
you know, and thank you very much, because I would have been surprised if you had been any less detailed. You're going to give us, as it were, we're talking about American immigration law, you know, and procedures. That is indeed to one side.
Yes.
It is very, very important. But the reason which has not been given is not removed from security threats. And we talked about this extensively yesterday, and we knew that we needed to get someone like you with your specialization to give us these other insights. But there are problems, perhaps. The ambassador has reeled out how it works.
I agree with
that these things don't happen overnight.
Exactly.
There's usually, it's not usually a knee-jerk reaction, even though some people are now saying, hey, Nigeria, among other things you can think about, how about a retaliatory action? I know there are times when that might be because we can say, okay, you too, nobody's allowed to a Nigerian immigration visa into Nigeria.
Sorry, before you go to the distinguished ambassador, let me make this point.
But I wanted
Nigeria-
to concentrate on the assumption that security, not splitting up families, security, because there have been a number of stories that we've been hearing here where anybody, and maybe that is a bit hyperbolic, but anybody can these days begin to say that he's a Nigerian because of a relaxing of the procedures.
Yes.
People are coming into the country any old how. They will therefore be technically entitled to a Nigerian passport.
I will take
and
you
the idea, the theory, sir, is that such people might actually end up seeking immigration status into there. And then these laws will come about again that America, Nancy Pelosi has come in on the matter and has said it's unconstitutional, it's discriminatory. So you let terrorists coming from elsewhere into their country. Trump has said America for America, America first, and all of that.
We all know that.
That is without prejudice to the valuable legal aspects that you're giving us.
No. The point is this. Nigeria has a problem. You see, and I don't blame the American government. Because, number one, the way you issue your passport here is such that... No. Let's
the
just
way
go
we
there.
issue our passport.
We issue our passport.
Why did you say your passport?
Sorry, okay.
Why did you say your passport?
My apologies.
Our passport.
Okay, my apologies. We can argue that from now to the end of
Are you
the
not part
act.
of us again?
But I'm saying...
Are you not carrying a Nigerian passport?
I carry a Nigerian and I carry passport of other countries.
I know.
But I'm just making comparison. But let's just focus on the issue. The way Nigeria issued passports, it is quite disturbing. This is, you will recall some years ago that there was this investigation by CNN journalists and they arrived in Nigeria within 24 hours.
Yeah.
They managed to get Nigerian passport.
Yeah.
And I've said this on so many occasions that, you see, passport is an acknowledgement of citizenship. Birth certificate is a gateway to nationality because you can be born in a place doesn't make you a citizen. But you see, the problem we have in Nigeria is this. Anybody can go to, if you go to the passport office now, you know one immigration officer, you know one tout, within the next 24 hours, you get your passport. That should be. Let us break the immigration service.
So if anybody wanted to protect themselves from lapses in Nigeria...
Maybe perhaps I should come in.
Okay, please.
Let me address that because I'm not only a theoretician, I'm a diplomat served in the foreign service an extended period, and also have
You actually had
privileged
hands-on engagement with these matters.
Yes, with this matter, both from the theoretical perspective, because I did international law twice, both at the PG level as well as mastered international, also international law. Why am I serving in Australia? I'm saying that there's been some progression in terms of the question and issues of passport, which you're talking about. We've moved from the MRP in those days, machine readable passport, to a passport which is now biometric. And we've had cases in which people came to the mission, they wanted to change name, and people who had also gotten passport before, by the time we put it into the process, the machine rejected it in Abuja, that this man had a passport before. We've had that in terms of the question of issue of passport. Now, to tie it back to the question we're talking about, because part of the thing, please, it is necessary for people to go and read and look at what is on that website.
Okay.
It is necessary. It is detailed. Like I said, you were talking about the question of family. Under the section, reminders on restrictions, and I'm reading from that side now. I said, let me make 2 reminders before I wrap up. I'm reading it from the Homeland Security section. First, as I said before, it is important to remember that this proclamation only restricts entry on certain categories of immigrant visas. Family members can still visit their loved ones. Businesses can still employ qualified candidates, and other visits can take place on a temporary basis with a non-immigrant visa. You see, it is necessary for people to have a proper understanding of it. There is no doubt about the fact that the United States has come up in terms of this issue on the issues of security. And I mean, let us be frank, we have problems as far as security itself is concerned. But in context of diplomatic relations between countries, as I speak to you, we have a delegation that is on its way to Washington, led by the Attorney General, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and I think in respect of the repatriation, in respect of repatriation of funds, which were stolen and which we want to get back. The U.S. has not said that, no, we will not discuss with Nigeria to get stolen money back. I mean, this is in context of general diplomatic ties. But the issue which they have raised is key. And let me speak.
And also, sorry, Ambassador, we have heard the news that the president has actually immediately formed a committee to address these issues.
Yes, of course. I mean, that's something positive, because you cannot fold your hands.
And they have said that they will continue to work with the U.S. and her allies.
And I also speak as Director General of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce Industry. And it's quite interesting for us because this is key. Why? Because our members have relations with business outfits in the U.S. As I speak to you, we also engage with the U.S. mission too, in a way, because they invite us regularly to the U.S. fair. That means they want to do business with us. And despite all of this, they know that at the end of the day, we will need visas, and there are members who will come here. So all those things are going on. But I do understand the reaction to this kind of thing. The bottom line is we have this on our laps. What do we do about it? It's a good thing the government, of course, is doing something about it. But all the other parts of the country, other section of government, and the polity, the first estate, second estate of the realm, and also the National Assembly. The National Assembly also has a role to play in this, because there is a forum in which legislative parliamentarians across the world meet. There's the IPU, in which they do. So it is possible for members of the National Assembly to, but apart from that, I want to tie it back to the fact that in those days, and this is one of the things I think we should learn, the Black Caucus, the National Black Caucus, the US Black Caucus, was a very good friend of Nigeria. When we have problems and issues like this, they are a constituency that we can work with in terms of the diplomatic démarche as well as the efforts to. But I see these as one of the spectrums in terms of long years of relations between Nigeria and the U.S. There's a picture which
and so it's likely to blow over.
Well, of course, definitely.
It comes up like this in diplomatic affairs, then it will chill again. But
I give you a practical example. We had some problems with Switzerland once.
Okay.
I was, of course, the director of public communication, and I was involved in the migration issue. And I'm sure my brother here, Dilo, will understand. we now have what we call the GCM, the Global Compact of Migration for Safe, Orderly Migration. And what happened in the case of Switzerland? They were deporting a Nigerian at Zurich Airport. In the process of struggling, Apatanyi died.
And that caused an uproar. Yeah.
And it became a big uproar between us and Switzerland. And a lot goes on behind the doors, behind the back.
Behind the scenes.
Behind the scene. Except you pierce the corporate veil.
You won't know what's going on.
So we went on to diplomatic offensive behind the back in terms of this. Long story short, the immigration chief of New Zealand came back to Nigeria. They did some kind of apology, and that was what led us to
Switzerland, you meant?
Yes, Switzerland.
Okay.
Yes, and that was what led us to have this migration agreement between Nigeria and Switzerland.
Okay. Now, I asked at the beginning if this was a storm in a teacup, if it, were we making a mountain out of an anthill, and I think you are saying that it needs to be taken much more seriously than those kind of notions.
Than setting up a committee, even.
Yes.
Because if you listen to the ambassador, what do you say? I don't expect the ambassador not to support the position of Nigerian government. But what I'm trying to say, what he read out, he said family members can still visit their loved ones.
But not on a permanent...
Not to join their loved ones.
Not on a permanent...
That is where I have a concern. That is visit. Do you really... If you are living in U.S., Mr. Ayori,
yes,
do you want your children to visit you or join you as a family? That is the question.
Okay.
But leaving that aside, the fundamental issue is this. Most of these countries have a visa waiver scheme. Nigeria is not benefiting. It's just the reason why is just because of our immigration system, inadequate immigration law, and the way we issue our passport. Nations have now moved to issuing an iris passport, whereby it can recognize your face and what have you. As soon as you get
we are compliant. I understand that we're becoming more and more compliant.
And another problem which we have is this. This is the Nigeria immigration law. It's not more than 34 pages.
Yes.
In a country...
How big is America?
No. In a country of 250 million. I won't be able to say that, but I can talk about... No, excuse me. I can talk about the UK. The UK population is 65 million.
All of that
and the immigration law is quite extensive.
Okay.
Now, what I'm trying to say is
that's Oxford Dictionary size thing that you brought out.
Yes.
Immigration law handbook.
No, all the Immigration Act, everything relating to immigration,
throughout
asylum,
the universe,
deportation, everything is there.
Mm-hmm.
And if you look at the Nigerian immigration, there are a lot of missing pieces of the jigsaw, but that's a matter for another day.
Sure.
You mentioned the president setting up a committee to look at this.
Immediately this happened.
No, not immediately. Don't forget.
Well, as far as
we have to be very careful.
We heard the news, and immediately we heard the news from the presidency.
This is why I always disagree with you sometimes, is that let us not look at things in isolation. Initially, when they heard about this, the statement from the presidency was that they are not going to do things based on speculation. They're going to wait until the United States of America make the announcement. That was the first statement. Subsequently, thereafter. Now, that's my concern. And if you listen to the distinguished ambassador, he said something, that there are processes, that this doesn't just happen overnight. Now, as at that time, why did you not engage? Number two, when you got wind of it, America has an ambassador here. If I'm the Minister of Internal Affairs, and I know this is going to have a devastating effect on my citizens, what I would do is to summon the American ambassador and say, look, sorry, we heard this. What is going on? Is it true? The ambassador, no doubt, will be in the know.
So, in other words, we could have been more preemptive.
Exactly. What do we do? Can you stop for now and let us take those actions?
Okay.
And that is important. Now, you set up a committee.
Government officials, you seem to be commenting that we were a bit slack.
We always do things in the last minute. That's the problem we have in this country. You see, the moment you heard about that, what you should have done is to call the ambassador and also take steps. Look, I think you mentioned Chad.
Are you insisting, sir, that all of this is largely our fault for not being proactive?
Number one, we have our own share of the problem.
Of course. Let me come quickly. You know, there's the issue of rationalization and irrational analysis. They're two different things altogether. While we may have emotions about this, we need to calm down.
Okay.
And in terms of to sort out the problem. We do have a mission in Washington, and I can confirm to you that indeed the mission had engaged even all through when the process was going on. When all the process was going on before it led up to this. And if you look at what the Homeland Security has on its website, it takes that sometimes what you provide to prevent it is not sufficient.
Okay.
You understand?
Okay.
So maybe perhaps I'm along the line. I'm no longer in government, but as somebody who is also
In that, of that community.
who was also part of the community, who was, as far as the Nigerian diplomacy itself, foreign policy itself, I do know that all these processes continue, and a lot of things are done in the mission to prevent. But at the end of the day, this particular issue, like we said, the question and issues of security is one of the key issues, which of course, don't forget there was a time in which flights from Nigeria were not even allowed directly into the U.S. itself until the ICAO came in, the Homeland Security and the U.S. Department of came in and then started it out. Now you have Delta coming and that. So this is how it goes on.
Security emphasis.
There's a security dimension to it.
Security that, okay.
Then also the question of cooperation. And like we said, even intelligence communities across the world share with each other. And as we speak, I think 11 chances out of a dozen discussions are going on the two sides.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying that all these issues need to be taken in properly. The question of family issues and things like that, which you mentioned, the website is quite clear on that, with reference to specific issues, because if you go on, time will not let me read.
Yeah,
there are applications
but
on
people
ground.
Can read it up for themselves.
Yes, let them go and read. There are applications already on ground, even before this. There is a cut-off date in terms of when you can resolve those issues. Even when you still miss the cut-off date, you still have. I give an example. I had the case of somebody in the U.S. laws. It's jus soli. That means that it's not jus sanguine, which means that if you're born on the ground of the U.S., your citizenship. They are even tightening those laws now.
Yes, they are.
I had a case in my hand. Somebody who was born on the ground of the U.S. and somehow, because he was under diplomatic cover, they were saying, no, you are not. But the family itself had moved out of the U.S. and they were no longer diplomat. That was when the child was born. They decided to take the passport from the person. But subsequently, there was a representation. Long story short, the U.S. passport was returned to that child.
Okay, there are these things.
Because
yes. Now,
it was a question of going through the process to make sure that, look, listen, to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that, yes, the person qualifies.
Okay, now to come back to this immediate action of the U.S. and as we were speculating yesterday, I would say speculating simply because we're not professionals, we're not lawyers, we're not diplomats, and so all we had was the news from the U.S. and the news from our own presidency. And our presidency was not, I didn't see it as being combative. It was, the first thing that we were hearing was that, yeah, it has happened. The president has ordered this. The Minister of Internal Affairs, he's heading up a committee. We've just heard that also there's other delegations going over there. All of it towards getting to the bottom of what exactly brought this all about. And then I was saying yesterday, I said it repeatedly, there's the interesting words that were used about with a view to addressing whatever the issues were. Now, let me continue my word speculation. We're speculating that maybe the U.S. people were unhappy with our cooperation, our sharing of stuff with them, sharing information.
Yes.
Maybe that information that they had shared before, they had found that it had ended up where it was not supposed to be, etc., etc., etc. Those are the issues, Mr. Aino, that I'd like you to, without prejudice to the law, and you've made a very passionate case about it, and you can't split up families,
yes.
But the other overall interest of both our countries, both the U.S. and our own, surely is important. Now, I've been told that I've got to go on a break, but let me go and then I'll come back and you'll further elucidate on that. Stay with us, please. We'll be right back. We'll continue. And of course, I know we must take your calls as well. Stay with us. Okay, welcome back. Quite vigorous conversation that we're having here, trying to understand the American partial restriction on immigrant visa status.
Apart from the security risk which they mentioned, they talk about identity management information system and how that works.
Yes.
If you book a ticket to fly to United States of America today, let's say through KLM, for instance, and the three of us book, our information gets to the US even before your luggage.
Yes.
And that's what they said Nigeria should try as much as possible to comply with. Nigeria has a border management capability system. In a country where we have about 450 illegal routes that enter the country. In a country where we have passport office spread all over the place. And I've said this, the best way forward, let's break the immigration into two. Let us have a nationality section and let us have an enforcement section. The nationality section can have their office at Abuja. If I want to apply for a passport, I can go to a bank, I can go to their website, download the application, send it off. If they need to interview me, I agree with the distinguished ambassador, they can call you for an interview, and they have a local office in Lagos. Of recent, they opened an office in Shagamu, a passport office in Shagamu. Now, there is no adequate research as to how many people in Shagamu even travel abroad. And why do you need a passport to the office there? If you go
There's
to the
also one in
passport
Abeokuta.
office, there's one in Abeokuta, there's one at Ikeja, there's one in Festa. If you go there now, you will see Nigerian citizens down just waiting for their passport. Now, the
What's the point
issue,
you're making,
you see,
sir?
the point I'm making is this. If you run such a defective system, all these bad elements which we are worried about, either Boko Haram, Niger, Chad, some of them were creeping into
Also,
the
the question
system.
of identification.
Because,
sir.
yes.
We talked about the national identification scheme that has virtually collapsed.
Yeah, that has totally collapsed. And it's not even limited to that. Nations don't stand alone any longer because of the threats going on around the world. Even if you apply to American embassy for a visa today, they share your information with Canada. If you apply to travel to Canada, if you look at the application form, there is a question there, have you ever been refused to any other country? If it is a case...
Are all these things not as they should be?
That is the way it's supposed to be, and Nigeria needs to key into that. And if they don't key into that, what you get is what we are discussing here.
We've
And
arrived back at the same place.
Exactly. That is the,
so I thought you were trying to say that the American people were at fault when we cannot identify each other.
We need to...
properly,
yes,
we cannot identify others, which I understand is not the same in America.
And you will
An American cop will enter you in without knowing that he was going to do so before, based on what and he'll be able to tell a fair bit about you.
That's the point.
We don't have that.
Most European countries,
we don't have
under
that.
the Schengen Agreement, if you apply to one
Schengen country,
they manage
but now
all
they
your
say,
information.
no more.
Like
we were managing our brothers, our neighbors, the other side, until we said partially close this border. Enough is enough. I know. I don't know if that analogy was
the
right.
border closed.
But
I'm indeed glad we've touched the question of issues of national identity card. It's so sad that we're still at this stage.
Yes, exactly.
But I think this is one of the challenges which we should work with, because it will help us in terms of the question of management of information, in terms of who are Nigerians, what are the national identity. I think these days you made mention of the fact that if you're traveling out, and I think that's why under the Carriers Liability Act, travels, airlines now, of course, must send ahead of time some of those things in there. And usually your borders, these days, is no longer where you think your borders is. And I'll give you a good example. When I served in Australia, and even recently, we were on an economic mission to Australia. You'll be shocked and surprised. The Australian immigration offices do have a place in South Africa at the airport. So that if you're transited through that place, it is possible for them to say, look, listen, at the end of the day, we're not sure we will allow you to continue.
Okay.
But having said that, I think the thing is now what is to be done, and that's what all of us should start working on.
Okay, sir. One moment, please. Tammy in Lagos, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah. I don't know why we are struggling and arguing about this restriction. We were told, we had the information that we're going to be restricted before now. What did the government do? Well, we don't even have, they told us why they are putting us in that place. We don't have a synchronized data ID system, which is very important, which they have told us that is one of the reasons. And we opened our borders to illegal immigrants to come in every day. We close our borders to food, but we open our borders to illegal immigrants to come in every day. And we expect the United States that are fighting terrorism to come and start giving you this visas.
But madam, I don't know about opening our borders to illegal immigrants. Madam, I don't know about that part. But I understand. Please continue.
Well, if you don't know about that fact, we have to say the truth.
Okay.
We're all afraid to talk. We're all afraid to speak because of one thing or the other. We have to say the truth. We know that illegal immigrants are coming in, and they are the cause of the problems we have in Nigeria today. They have infiltrated into our nation. They are in different parts of the country. We are ambushed. We know that, and the government knows. But everyone is afraid to speak. It is good to speak the truth. The denominator say you speak the truth, you die. You don't talk, you die. So just to speak the truth.
Okay, you're quoting former senator. Oh well, actually, once the senator, always the senator. You're quoting the Senator Dino Melaye now. Okay.
They have said what they want. We should remain in our country and salvage our country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tammy, for calling in. Okay, she's angry that, what are we talking about? We said it yesterday that it would appear, to put it crudely, our security house is not in order in their view. Their view. We might have a different take on the whole thing.
No, that's a reality.
Yeah, it's a reality.
Exactly. So how do you expect them to continue to allow people that they consider might be a threat to them, no matter how inadvertently?
Mr. Ayore, sorry, I blame the Nigerian government.
You blame the Nigerian government.
Yes.
And that much has been said.
And what is going on here is this. You see, most of these countries even have, let's forget what is going on.
And you don't blame the Americans, you blame the Nigerian authorities.
Because they fail to engage. They ought to have, you see, once you know that this is going to happen to your citizens, you need to take a proactive measure. That's why you have diplomats all over the place.
But Tammy has just called in.
The point is this.
Tammy has just called in.
You see,
she's talking about
what they're doing, setting up a committee at the last minute now, I can tell you it's a sign of shambolic leadership. Because at the end of the day, you got wind of this.
If I talk
years
now,
ago. No. You got wind of this.
You're saying shambolic. If I talk now, you say this is the problem with you, Mr. Ayore.
Okay, fair enough.
You want to withdraw shambolic leadership.
Okay,
well, you want to withdraw shambolic leadership.
Let me water it down.
Oh, yeah, water it down.
Okay, let me water it down. Okay, we praise the president for the fact that he has set up a committee. But this committee, they need to get on board as soon as possible,
because it's a bit,
and make sure that this decision is reviewed.
It's a bit like closing the stable door after the horse has bolted. Okay,
and that's the point.
Well, thank you very much.
Sorry, sir. John in Coventry. Good morning, John.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, I would like to contribute to the...
Go ahead.
I totally disagree if the ban is about security, because I don't think Nigeria is some kind of threat to the United States if we have to compare that with other countries like Saudi Arabia.
So what do you think it's about?
Remember, it's about, I would say it's about the president, what he has against the foreigner. Because let me just come about the security. Because
you don't think this action is security-based? Then what do you think it is about, sir?
It's only trying to just reduce foreigners coming from the United States, because using security as the major front against Nigeria. Okay. Nigeria has never been a threat to the United States. Because when you compare Saudi Arabia has, because we have like 17 people that engage in the World Trade Center. About 15 of them are Saudi Arabia. And last year again, unless Saudi Arabia bombed maybe one of their army base or something.
Sure,
and
sure.
they did nothing.
Okay. But they are saying, sir, if you recall, they are saying that Nigeria has become a terrorist pass-through.
High-risk route, yes.
It has become a terrorist route. Just like, you know, if you recall, they said that Nigeria has become something of a terrorist route in certain areas. And this has not been addressed to their satisfaction.
But that is internal problems within Nigeria. That's what
Okay. Thank you very much for calling in, sir.
There's a dimension which I think we need to come up also with as well. One, part of the processes, like I said, it took a whole lot of processing, was that if you look at the number of Nigerians who take non-immigrant and visiting visa, the percentage is alarming. Out of the thousands that goes, maybe only 27% come back.
Okay.
So a large number of Nigerians have been known and seen to be violating immigration regulations.
But they still didn't even address that side of
it is even also, it is even also part of it. Like, you know, people need, unfortunately, you need to go in depth into all of this.
Yeah.
Like I said, the first thing we will recommend to people, please let them look at the Homeland Security website and what it is on need. 2020 travels to visa restriction. Release date 31/2000. It's important to do because as part of the process of getting over this. And I want our conversation to be very useful in terms of resolution of the issues. And that's why we're saying that from the perspective of the chambers of commerce and others, we also engage in this particular area. And I'll give you a good example of what happened in South Africa. After all the crises and what we had, there was a delegation, apart from the engagement between the government and the two sides, the Nigeria and South Africa chambers of commerce and also engaged our counterpart in South Africa in terms of, look, listen, how do we prevent this? How do we scale over this crisis? And the engagement and the discussions is on. So for us, as far as the chambers of commerce, the human dimension is very important. The question of business relations, look, as we speak, business relations is still going on between Nigeria and of course, the United States. Even if you go back to the days of the Israeli, I served 4 years in Tel Aviv in Israel. Despite the so-called diplomatic, a lot was going on. And of course, eventually, what happened between us and them. Let us.
As you said, it's advisable for people to check out the U.S. Homeland.
They need to educate themselves about it.
Abdul Rashid in Auchi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir. Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for calling in.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Actually, I don't think we should be wasting our time over American banning us from entering the US.
Okay.
We should be thinking of how to solve our own personal problems first. If you go to, we are talking about border people. If you go to the border right now, that's up to you. You will see that the normal route is closed, but all the illegal routes are wide open. The security agencies are right there collecting money. It's something that I know very well. I work there. I know what is happening in that place. If you go there, you will be ashamed of our leaders not monitoring what is happening at the border. They only tell us that the border is closed. Yes, quite right, it's closed. But we have, I'm talking to you, as I'm talking to you right now, at the Lela border, we have more than 200 illegal routes. And those illegal routes are wide open, is what I know very well. This time, they are even making, the security personnel are making money that they have never made before with this border closure. If you go there, you'll be surprised. You see that the normal route is wide closed. It's closed. But the illegal routes are wide open. With the security, if anything is coming to this country, they will tell you, don't come to this route, come to this route.
Yeah.
They will leave that place that they ask you to follow. They will leave that place and go to another place. So these people are watching us. They know all those things is happening in this country. So for that reason, they will not allow us to do something that's going to destroy them.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Abdul Rashid. I appreciate your call. Thank you very much. Alongside this point that he made yesterday, we were talking about the the National Identity Card Scheme that has virtually collapsed. And another gentleman called in who says he's not talking from the outside, he's in there. The whole thing has been monetized. Exactly. People, the forms that are supposed to be free, people are actually selling them. So it's like what you were saying about not doing what we need to do as a people.
Yes.
And so I didn't really initially understand your anger at this whole action when we ourselves are the people at fault.
There's no anger. What I'm just concerned about is that any decision that violates the right of family, I would not support it.
Of course.
That's the point.
But also you've heard that the U.S. people have said that families are intact. Families are not going to be affected by this.
No, they are saying family, you can visit your family, not that you can join the family. That's an issue.
On a non-permanent basis.
The other issue, and this is a sign of things to come, and I can tell you, you see, President Trump, I think I don't know whether the ambassador will disagree with that, is an anti-immigrant president, right from the time, and the election is coming.
Yes.
And in some of these countries,
yes,
immigration is a political hot potato. So, you know, don't forget, this is a president that initially toyed with the idea that people who come to United States and have a child, they will not get nationality. He talk about countries.
He's not being the most discreet or the most diplomatic of presidents.
So, you know,
Mr. Yakub, thank you for holding on, sir. Good morning.
Good morning, Shivjori.
Okay.
And then good morning to your vet.
Sure. Thank you.
Shivjori, I totally agree with the last caller. If US is saying that they give us a fiscal restriction, and then we should look inward to know what is really wrong with ourselves. Number one, if it is truly because of insecurity, yes, it's showing in our faces in this country that yes, security is not well located with us. But the issue now I want to ask this, why is it difficult for US to come to our aid to even help us to fight this terrorists? Why? Because I don't even understand. Because they are in Afghanistan, they are in Iraq, they are all sorts of other countries that ICC are totally working in that area, and then they are destroying them over there.
Yeah.
And then when they're bombing them there, they come down to Africa, especially here in Nigeria.
Okay, Yakub, I beg your pardon, because we've run out of time. Thank you very much for setting that up. The ambassador said he'd like to take a stab at that question of why can't the US even come and help us fight these terrorist
I was
elements.
talking about the UN.
US, he said.
Well, the US.
Okay, but you thought he meant UN.
Yeah,
okay.
I'll answer the question.
Sure.
Within the framework of the United Nations itself and the General Assembly as well as Security Council, there's a cooperative endeavor there. We have the UN Security Council resolution on global terrorism, and a lot of cooperation is going on in that particular area, involving also the US and everybody. Please go and look at the UN Security Council resolution. I think it's 320 or whatever it is. Then apart from that, we also have the UN, the Small Arms and Light Weapons Initiative, which is a global framework to tackle the whole question of small arms and light weapons. Hundreds of millions of small arms and light weapons are in the arms of terrorists, in terms of group, causing security issues. We also have that platform, and a lot is going on in that particular area. It is now the responsibility of countries to set up their own NATCOM, the National Action Committee on Small Arms. The question and issue is how far have we used these instruments to tackle some of these issues? Because they are also all related, itself. Like I said, these are some of the things which, of course, we need to.
Mr. Efeanyi in Ojo, good morning, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, quickly, please.
Yes, the topic is very interesting. It is very shameful that at this time and age, we are still crying that some countries refuse us entry into their countries.
On a permanent basis.
It is very shameful.
It's not permanent.
If those who have ruled us all these years have done very good job, if your house is good, you don't need to go to another person's country.
Okay.
If this Nigeria is what it's supposed to be,
yes,
people will be migrating from here to other countries in large numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You only go and do whatever business you have to do and come back to your country. In the past, Ghanaians we are here, and today Nigerians are trooping into Ghana to live. And when they deny entry, we cry. South Africa, the same, and so many other countries. We should look at what the government, the people who are ruling us, should do to make this country a welcoming place for and a place for every one of us to stay and live comfortably.
Thank you very much for making that point, Mr. Fianyi. Thank you very much for that point. I know that there's more to it, but that's the outskirt of it. That if we had our act together politically, governance-wise, and all of that through the decades, not now. Never mind shambolic, not now. If we've been having it together, then nobody would want to go anywhere, is the point that Mr. Ifeanyi is making.
No, I've said that before. You need to give your citizens opportunity, number one. And also citizenship connotes right. If your citizens have a problem abroad, you must be there.
Indeed.
Indeed.
As we were we were very much present in the South African crisis.
Exactly. Well, that's one, but
you have to concede now.
I'm of the view we should have taken a more robust approach. But it's all right.
It doesn't matter how well they do.
But Mr. Yoribi, by and large,
yes,
this is a sign of things to come. And Nigeria as a country needs to try and take a proactive approach. It's very, very important. And what is going on in the world now, and this migration we are even talking about, in the next 5 or 10 years, I doubt whether anybody will like to migrate because technology is taking over now. And that is the core issue. If you go to Japan today, they have a problem with aging population, but they don't want immigrants. And what are they doing? They are just developing robots. Every day you go into a shop, there is something that captures all your details, including your assets. And next time you visit that shop, it will just say, now your face be this, and you will think it's somebody talking to you. So this is what is going on.
Let me see if I can squeeze in Akim in Ogun State. Very quickly, please. We're really down to the wire now. Good morning, Mr. Akim.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Yes, I want to just quickly make this comment.
Sure.
Yeah, you see, we are taking everything from the surface.
Okay.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
I can hear you, sir. Please continue.
Yes, the idea is the diplomat, has been very educative in his analysis. And the international lawyer, yes, that's contributions. But you see, Nigeria is Nigeria's problem.
Yes.
We have not been able to, as a country.
So we need to work on ourselves. I'm sorry, sir, we've run out of time. Mr. Akim, forgive me, but I think you are saying that we have to work on ourselves. Forgive me for jumping in, but we've completely run out of time. But I guess that was where you were going to land, that the moment we begin to work for ourselves and do the right things, things will not be as bad as this. The ambassador explained how these things never happen, it's never a knee-jerk reaction. Tammy called in and said, just as you were saying, that we knew this was coming down. And Tammy and yourself, you're angry that we weren't more proactive. So we leave it. The president, what do we do with a bad thing? Well, the president has now set it up. You might say that the horse has bolted before they're closing the barn doors, but okay, at least sort of now we're speaking. The ambassador said some people are on the way yonder.
Well, thank you very much. I think in closing, we should stay engaged on this.
Okay.
Either we like it or not, a committee has been set up, they've gone.
Yes.
Let's see what they come back with. But also all sections of society, all arms of government should also see what can be done. And that's why I'm saying as a Chambers of Commerce, we are interested in this from various perspectives, and we're also engaging our counterparts to see how we can be able to find a solution, satisfactory solution.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Ayo Olukoni, DG of the Nigerian Association of Chambers of Commerce and Industry, Mines and Agriculture, NASIMA.
Thank you for
thank you very much for coming on. And also, thank you very much, Mr. Femi Aino, international lawyer, for adding perspective and indeed knowledge. Gentlemen, both of you have been so educative this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
So that's our program. Thank you for being with us. Join us tomorrow, please, for a fresh edition. I am Iyori Folari. Bye-bye for now.